to the Modern Day Overthinker podcast. My name is Colin, and I'm your host. Today's guest is Bobby Ray Bunch. You want me to say your full name like that, or do you
That
want
is
me
my
to say
name, yeah.
that is your full name,
Yeah.
and that is your real name?
That's on a birth certificate
Yeah.
that two adults agreed upon.
I was talking to my brother earlier, and because I was like, my brother's a couple years younger than you. He went to Assumption. And I was like, "Do you know this guy?" He's like, "I've heard the name." And he's like, "Is that his real name?" I'm like, "Yeah, I
Yeah.
think so."
Yeah, one time I did a comedy club in Southern Illinois. It's no longer open, but the ticket said Bubba Ray Ranch. And so I go to the
It's
owner,
a great stage name.
and I go, "What?" I go, "Who's Bubba Ray Ranch?" He goes, "Well, that's you." I go, "No, it's not. My name's Bobby Ray Bunch." He's like, "No, it's not." I go, "Yeah, you're right. You would know my name better than
Than me.
Yeah, yeah. I'm named after my Uncle Bob and my Uncle Ray on my mom's side, and they just went with Bobby instead of Robert or something like that. So
We want him to be a kid his whole life.
I mean, my name sounds like when cousins play spin the bottle. You know, it's not. I used to hate my name, but I've embraced it.
Yeah,
now.
I mean, what are you gonna do?
You could legally change it.
You could legally change
I'm
it,
not
or
gonna
you
do
could
that.
go Bob, and that's.
I went by Bob when I was younger. So like,
Really?
if you are around me and I'm with people that I grew up with, a lot of them call me Bob.
Okay.
And then when I went in the military, everyone called me Bobby, which is weird because usually in the military, everyone
More
calls
official.
you by your last name.
Oh yeah.
But everyone always called me Bobby, like even colonels and stuff, you know,
Weird.
or Bobby Ray or whatever. And so now it's like a mixture. Some people call me BRB, some people call me Bobby Ray, some people call me Bobby. What I found though is like older guys, if I introduce them like in a professional environment, and I say, "Yeah, my name's Bobby," they are like, "Yeah, no, I'm gonna call you Bob." They will not call me Bobby.
Yeah.
So
Like,
and I don't mind. I'll take Bob or Bob. It doesn't matter to me.
Yeah.
So I just find it funny.
yeah. So you do a lot of different stuff. So you've done comedy, music. You're a
Mhm.
realtor now.
Mm-hmm.
How long have you been a realtor for?
3 years.
3 years. Okay.
Yeah.
What were you doing before that?
I own an event company.
Okay.
And so I quit my full-time job in 2016. I was doing dental IT sales for a startup and had kind of grown the Quad City market and some other markets in Eastern Iowa. And I enjoyed it, but I was playing a lot of live music at the time, and I was
Mhm.
doing quite a bit of stand-up at the time. And I just have always wanted to be self-employed.
Oh yeah.
And so I quit my job November of 2016, and then I was just full-time music, full-time comedy. And then I started this event that blew up. I had no idea. I had no event production experience or anything. And I
Yeah.
started this event called Food Truck Fight, where I got these.
Yeah, which has gotten real big.
Yeah, I mean, a couple different states, and you know, doing 3 or 4 of them a year, and then I do like a craft beer tasting event in a couple different cities, and then we collaborate with other businesses and cities on events and things, and so that was all going really well into 2020, and then the pandemic happened, and
Yeah.
my entire livelihood was getting people together,
Yeah.
and I'm not really one to sit on my hands, and so I just sat in my office for 2 months and online got my real estate license.
Yeah.
And then just hit the ground running. I had no idea what to expect, but
Yeah.
I knew I'd be good at it, but I didn't know how quickly it would take off.
Yeah.
And it took off. And then the music gigs came back, and then the comedy came back, and then the events came back, and so then I'm, doing all of that, and it's yeah, I love it. I mean, I found a way to truly do what I love for a living, and it's working with people, it's entertaining people. Sometimes you change somebody's life with, finding them a first time house, or, selling their house for more than they ever imagined, or just putting on a really great event that they brought their family to. And I don't know if I've ever done anything like that for anybody with my comedy, but I really enjoy what I do. I found a good little program I put together.
And the music gigs probably pay better. I mean, generally.
Yeah. I mean, and that was the thing, is when I was on the road a lot doing comedy, I was mostly a feature act. So I'm driving to Bismarck, North Dakota for $400 when I could have just gone down the street and played wagon wheel for a couple hours and made
For the same amount.
money,
Yeah.
So then I started gearing more towards playing music, and then I really got into, and now what I do a lot of is just private parties and corporate events, and so that's like my niche now, I would say.
For music or comedy, or they
both?
Both?
Yeah.
Will you do both in one night?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And that's like especially
Like open
for
for yourself.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I mean, especially for company Christmas parties and
Oh
things
yeah.
like that, I will give them the option. I'll say, we could do a little music during cocktail hour, and then you guys eat, and then we'll do comedy, and then I can end the night with some music, and works out pretty well.
And it's just solo.
Yeah, sometimes I play with like a duo or a trio,
Yeah.
things like that, but it's usually, I mean, I'm 99% of the time acoustic.
Yeah.
And just doing acoustic covers. I don't write my own songs or anything like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But I do enjoy, taking a song and making a kind of a cool acoustic cover of it.
Yeah. Kind of messing with it a little bit, or
Yeah.
changing some words.
Not changing
Not
words,
just
just changing the style of it.
Okay.
Like, Gangsta's Paradise.
Yeah.
I like doing the acoustic version of that. Or, Hey Ya by Outkast or something along those lines.
Yeah.
Not to brag, but I won the 2010 Scott Community College Talent Show by playing Hey Ya and Baby One More Time, Britney Spears.
I mean, that's a
First
classic.
place, $100. It was a big deal.
$100.
It's on my LinkedIn.
It's on my LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. So mainly you've been up to more of the events, and obviously the housing market's crazy right now.
Yeah.
Still.
Yeah. It's, the news loves giving it a bad rap. I always tell people here in the Quad Cities, I go, don't get your real estate news from the national media, because comparing a market in Las Vegas or Los Angeles is just not the same. And
not at all.
And we still have a market here where you can buy a house for under $100,000, and that is unheard of in most places in the United States. But the problem is we have record low inventory, so the housing prices have not come down. But with rates have gone up, and then they're kind of coming back down now. But it just makes it way more expensive. And then mentally, everyone is still thinking about the 2.5–3% rates from 2020 and 2021, and that was just unrealistic, and it's never going to happen again. So right now we're in the low sixes, which is pretty good. It's really not that bad. And I always tell people, if you can afford the payment, you're better off buying a house than renting. But if you can't afford the payment, then don't buy a house.
Yeah.
It's really as simple as that. And everyone's like, I'm never going to be able to buy a house. Well, let's have that conversation. I mean, if there's FHA loans where you only have to put 3.5% down. There's a lot of conventional loans that only require 5% down, and you won't have to pay that mortgage insurance. And it all depends on your credit and a lot of those things, how much you would make a year and things along those lines. But the idea of owning a home is not as impossible as a lot of the news outlets make it to be.
Yeah.
Or a lot of the younger generation, people in their early 20s have just convinced themselves, I'm never going to buy a house.
Yeah, it's intimidating, and they just think it's just
and it's not that big of a deal.
Astronomically expensive.
Yeah, it's not that big of a deal. I mean,
no, it's not.
My mortgage is $1,500 a month. Well, I overpay. So I pay $1,500 a month. Like, there's apartments in Bettendorf and Davenport that are 2-bedroom that are more than that.
Yeah.
So I'll take that every day and build equity, and then you sell it and put that towards something else.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah.
So have you gotten into the property game a little bit, like of your own?
That's a 2024 thing.
Yeah.
I haven't yet. I went through a divorce this year, so I wanted to wait until that was finalized before I started buying more assets and things like that.
Yeah.
But I would definitely, I'm not a handy person. Like, I tell people I can't even fix a stapler. So
really?
If I do flip a house, like, I'm going to need a lot of
guys,
professional help, which costs more money. And but then I would like to learn along the way, and then I don't think I'll ever be rewiring a house or anything like that, but I'll learn how to do flooring, and then I can paint.
It's satisfying. Like, I redid my kitchen. I had help, but like I helped do it. Yeah. And it was like really satisfying to get, be like, obviously there's little spots and I'm like, God damn it. Yeah. Like in the tile, like we did the tile floor, like nobody notices except for me, but
exactly. It'll drive you crazy, but nobody's ever going to pick it out.
Yeah. Stupid stuff, painting stuff. Yeah.
And with rentals, like, I would love to have some rentals because I would be, the way a landlord's supposed to be, and actually take care of the property and make sure that their living conditions are the way they're supposed to be.
Yeah, put money back into it.
Exactly. And every very wealthy and successful person I know owns property. Yeah. And it is part of my retirement plan, and so that's kind of what I'm going to get into next year with whatever. We'll see.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just finding good tenants. I've heard is the toughest part.
Yeah, but it all depends on your interview process, right?
Yeah,
And you know, you're not always going to get it right, but
yeah,
again, I just think if you treat people a certain way, then you're most likely going to get that back.
yeah, yeah,
And a lot of these people that are tough tenants also have a tough landlord that isn't there for them and doesn't understand and has no compassion and you know, it's very robotic and black and white, and I can understand some of that, but at the end of the day, we're dealing with human people, you know, human
yeah.
beings here. So
You think some of them, at a certain point, they just start to get like monotonous and then they just kind of go cold
yeah, I
after a
think
while?
depends how big you get. I think
Like
some
they
of
start
these,
out with that, with the mentality that you have right now, and then they
yeah,
just kind of get cold.
I think sometimes tenants become just a number to them,
Yeah,
and you know these tenants have kids and they have. Uh, they get sick and things happen, life happens, you know.
yeah.
And I think that if you can have, don't get me wrong, like there are people out there that will just burn their landlord and don't
Oh
care
yeah,
and things like that. But what I'm saying is if you give them the notion that you're there to make sure they have a good house to live in
set
and you're
good
going to fix
expectations.
things and
Yeah,
you're going to update and work with them on stuff, you know, I think you'll get that back. And that, I truly believe that. But there's probably if I say that in my real estate circles, people are like, "You're an idiot. You're going to get burned." And I said, "Okay, we'll see."
yeah, yeah.
You know,
I gotta try it.
yeah, and
Yeah,
I don't really know any other way to be. Like, I can definitely be an asshole and things like that, but it's usually because it's you know something happened and I have to be that way.
you have
You
to
know,
be
and
that.
I'm not. That's not my. I don't like to start out that way or you know do business that way at all. Like I'm a very compassionate realtor, and I know realtors get a bad rap because there are a lot of bad ones.
Oh,
There's not a large barrier to entry to get into the
yeah.
business, um, and so I always just promised myself I will always do things the right way. I'll always do things by the book. Um, I'll never put my interest ahead of any client's interest, and it's worked for me. So
That's good. I mean, that's the way to do it. I mean, you gotta treat people the way that you want to be treated, like the old golden rule. You know, it's
create
really,
create raving fans, no matter what you do,
yeah,
right? Whether it's me playing wagon wheel, you know,
yeah,
I want people to be like, I really liked that,
yeah,
you know, even though I hate playing that song.
yeah,
But I
yeah,
want to create raving fans so that when they think of live music and we want to hire somebody to come play at our house or for my business, I want them to think of me. And same with real estate. And you know, comedy, like I have a tough time still calling myself a comedian because I'm not putting in the work and getting on stage as much as I used to or as much as I should be. And you know, I'll develop new material here and there, but at the end of the day, like my act is my act, and I get it. Like it's not,
yeah,
I'm not breaking any new ground here talking about parking at Casey's,
yeah, yeah,
right? It is what it is.
yeah, yeah. It's kind of like an itch, though. Like you gotta
Yeah, I
scratch it every
love
once in a
it.
while. Yeah,
I
yeah,
love it, and I've tried to get away from comedy. I've been like, I'm done, and it's ingrained in me. I've always been a class clown. I always love making people laugh,
yeah, yeah,
and I'm quick,
yeah.
and so
That helps a lot.
there is no better feeling in the world than crushing
Oh,
in front of a sold out crowd. But there really aren't a lot of worse feelings than bombing so early into your set, and you look at your watch and you go, I have to talk for 20 more minutes, and they hate me.
yeah.
And I'm not Bill Burr. Like, I'm not going to dig myself out of that. I've just accepted that they
Yeah,
hate me.
yeah,
And that mostly happens at corporate events. So, like, especially early on when I just didn't know how to pivot or do crowd work or
yeah,
anything like that, you know, because I used to care so much. I wanted everyone in the crowd to like me.
yeah. Well, of course.
And now that I don't care, and now that comedy is not my livelihood, it actually, in my opinion, it made me a better comedian because I get to be
Because
more
you're not.
authentic.
That's not in the back of your head.
Exactly. I'm
Yeah,
not like, oh well, if this doesn't go well, I'm never gonna get booked here again.
yeah,
I don't care.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know? I hope I get booked again, but
yeah.
if I don't, it's not gonna ruin my day.
Yeah, caring too much kind of ruins the act sometimes. It can.
Yeah, and I think it's common in what anyone does, right? I mean, I think human beings, we have an innate ability to care what everyone else thinks, and
Mm,
that's why social media is so horrible. Is we're comparing ourselves to all these people, and it's not real. None of it's real,
no.
right? I mean, you see you see these influencers out in the wild, and you're just like, oh God, that's not real. You know, what are
Yeah,
you doing?
yeah,
But then you see it on their Instagram, and you're like, that looks amazing. You know,
yeah,
like,
yeah,
oh, that's not your yacht. Okay, that's not your car.
No.
You're not on a private jet.
No.
So I I think it's impossible to not care what people think about you, but I think it is possible to maintain your own expectations, and I think it just kind of comes down to self-talk, right? I mean, how many people just are horrible to themselves?
Oh, a lot.
And the things they say to themselves on a daily basis. And that took me a really, really long time to figure out and realize something that simple of just how you talk to yourself.
Yeah.
Can impact everything you do, and how you feel, and the way you talk to people, and the way you do your job, and the way you spend time with yourself. Because at the end of the day, you spend a lot of time with yourself. I'm in my head 24/7.
Oh yeah.
And if I'm sitting there berating myself and saying, "God, you're losing your hair, and you're ugly, and you're like, only 5'8" with heels on," it's like that'll spill over into how I project myself to people. Mm-hmm. Builds insecurity, and it builds just a complete foundation of negativity that is never going to stand. You can build whatever you want on top of it. It's not going to work.
Yeah.
So I think that's really important to remember. And I still remind myself of it all the time.
You have to remind yourself of it, otherwise it starts happening.
Sometimes it's a job, mental well-being is a job. And, those of us that suffer from depression and anxiety and all those demons in our head, it's like, yeah, we got dealt a bad hand. But, I truly believe in the saying that, depression and the anxiety and whatever you're suffering from, it's not your fault, but it is your responsibility.
Exactly. That's how we treat, like, I'm in recovery from, and that's how we talk about addiction. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
Like, you haven't, like, some people argue it's a disease. It's not a disease, but, like, if you look at it that way as a disease, like, I have this, I have an addiction. I'm addicted to basically anything that takes me out of my head. Mm-hmm. So I have to keep that in check.
Sure.
And that could be drugs, that could be gambling, that could be binge watching TV shows.
Anything, man. Isolating.
Isolating. I've done that. Yeah.
Yeah, I loved it.
Yeah.
I loved isolating.
Yeah, COVID was great for a while.
I would do another COVID. You know? Like I was talking to a buddy of mine, and he's like, "Yeah, this guy I know, he had the option of 2 days in jail or 4 days of house arrest." And I go, "What's that mean?" He goes, "He just couldn't leave his house for 4 days." I'm like, I would love house arrest.
Yeah.
Can I get a house arrest?
Yeah.
You mean I can't leave for 4 days?
Darn it.
Dude, I would be doing 82 game seasons on NBA 2K, 12-minute quarters, running a franchise. It'd be it'd be great. I'd have a record, but gotta look at the bright side.
Yeah,
right?
Glass half full.
Yeah.
Oh man. So, you mentioned that you were in the military. So let's kind of go back a little bit. Did you go into the military like right after high school?
Yeah. So kind of funny how all that happened. Like my sister is 2 years older than me, and she graduated high school and went in the Marines.
Okay.
And so she was actually in boot camp during 9/11 when 9/11 happened.
Shit.
And so I was a junior in high school, and then I kind of just watched what she was doing, and I didn't know, the way I was raised, like I didn't have somebody being like, here's an ACT prep course. Hey, let's go visit colleges. Like there was nothing like that. I didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
And I didn't have that guidance. And so it was either stick around, go to community college, go paint for my dad.
Yeah.
Or go in the military. And so my sister had her recruiter call me. So I went to the Marine recruiting office, and these two guys, like I was sitting in a chair, and these two guys just like stood over me, like pointing, and I was just like, "Yeah, I don't think this is my thing." And I didn't cry, like I don't care what they said.
You're just like, this is.
It was just intense, you know. And so I left, and as I'm walking out, this guy, because the Air Force recruiting office was right there, and he's like, "What's going on?" I think he poached me or whatever.
Yeah.
And so in school, like learning Spanish came very easy to me. And I loved it. I still love speaking Spanish when I can. I don't speak it as well as I used to, but I loved that aspect of like, learning a language and the culture behind it and everything. And so I wanted to go in as a linguist, and I scored high enough on my ASVAB that I qualified for a linguist position, but they give you a test, and the test they give you is a fake language that you have to decipher and translate, and I wasn't able to do that, and so I failed it. So then they were like, "Well, what else do you want to do?" I was like, "I want to travel. I just want to be all over the world." And they go, "Well, you probably like being a loadmaster." And I go, "What's a loadmaster?" And they said, "Well, you get attached to like a cargo plane, and you're responsible for the weights and measures of the aircraft for when they're loading cargo and things like that, make sure it can still fly." I go, "Yeah, that'd be awesome. I'm great with numbers, love traveling." So in the middle of boot camp, we had to do a flight physical, and anyone with a flying job goes through a flight physical. And I found out that I can't valsalve, I can't pop both my ears. And so if you're going to be flying all the time, you have to be able to plug your nose and close your mouth and pop your ears because of all the pressure change and things like that. And I wasn't able to. And so they said, "Okay, you have two choices. You can separate from the military and we'll send you home, or you can go in as what's called open general. And there's a list of jobs that need to be filled that are critically manned." And so I said, "Yeah, I want to stay in." So they put me in security forces, which is police in the United States Air Force. And I was like, "Damn it." And I was like, "I'm a cop, Dad." And so this was, beginning of 2004, the Iraq war is like hot, heavy, and I'm like, "Yeah, I'm getting deployed. Like, this sucks." And I remember before I left Lackland Air Force Base to go to my first duty station, I ran into my drill instructor, and he's like, "Where are you going?" And I said, I'm getting stationed at RAF Lakenheath in England." And he goes, "You'll have time to have one beer before they send your ass to the desert." And I remember I just like started crying.
Yeah, that's scary. How old were you at the time?
19.
Ugh.
And so I got to my first base, and I'd been out of the country before. I'd been away from home before, but I just remember calling my dad. I was there for like 2 weeks. I'm like, "I want to come home." Like this. He's like, "Sorry, they own you. You're not going anywhere."
Yeah, I mean.
So then I had to make a choice. Like, do I want to figure this out and make the best of it, or do I want to wallow and whine about it? And so luckily I met some really, really great people that I worked with, and I had a really, really good supervisor. And then about 6 months later, I got deployed. But I went to Qatar, which was like Al Udeid Air Base was like an R&R base. It still is. And so like the guys that are in
What's R&R?
Rest and relaxation. Okay. And so the guys that are in Afghanistan and all the crappy places, they get to go there for like a week and just recharge, And so it wasn't like a combat deployment or anything like that. Just did like flight line security, perimeter security, entry point checks and things along those lines. But then my second base, I got a special duty assignment to Andrews Air Force Base to work for Air Force One. And they promised me that I wouldn't deploy if I took that job.
Okay.
So I extended my contract, went to Andrews, and they lied. And so I got sent to Camp Bucca, which was a prison in southern Iraq in 2007, and I was there pretty much the whole year. And it was during the surge, and they had deployed thousands of more troops to Iraq, and the Marines were just sweeping villages of like, if a bomb or an IED went off, improvised explosive device, they would sweep a town and detain any male between the ages of like 18 and 50 and just take them.
Yeah.
And then they'd put them in this open air prison that I was working. And so there was 33,000 detainees divided between 33 compounds. So our compound would range between 900 and 1,100 detainees. And some of these guys like spoke English and things like that. And so I'd like talk to them through the fence, and got to know a couple of them. And I'd be like, "How did you end up here?" And they're like, "I was in my house, like having dinner, and you guys kicked the door in and grabbed me." And I go, "How long you been here?" "Oh, like a year." And I go, "When are you going to get out?" He's like, "Once I get to see a lawyer." I mean, and so it like really kind of changed my perspective. I'm like, what the hell? Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah, what are we
doing here? And don't get me wrong, like there was definitely some bad people over there, but
yeah, for sure.
A lot of these guys were just like defending their country. like we would, you know. And
Yeah.
so it really opened my eyes. And so I got back from Camp Buka, and I was messed up because like we were getting mortared every day. There's escape attempts all the time. Guys in my unit would be going out for convoys and not coming back,
Mm.
and so when I got back, it was like December of '07, and I remember I was with my dad in Maryland, and we were walking, like we were walking through a parking lot, and a garbage truck like dropped a dumpster, and I hit the deck.
Mm.
I mean,
Yeah.
it was just like, you know, shell shock or
Yeah.
whatever. But in the military, like you can't be like, I want to get help, because I had a higher and top secret clearance. So if I would have went to a therapist or gone to mental health or anything like that, I would have lost my clearance,
Which is wild.
or I would have not been able to carry a gun, which was my whole job.
Yeah.
And so you're terrified of admitting, you know, and then also the way I was raised, you know, had a traumatic childhood. And I remember when I was like in 9th grade, I went to my dad and I was like, I want to go to see a therapist. He's like, for what?
Mm.
And I go, well, there's just some things I want to talk about. He's like, well, you can talk to me. And I go, well, what? I go, what if I want to talk about you? He's like, what? Just say it to my face. You know, and so like therapy was stupid. Depression didn't exist.
Yeah.
Anxieties for gays, whatever
Yeah,
my dad would say.
Yeah,
you know?
Something reckless.
Those are my dad's words, not mine. And
Yeah.
and so I just always had that mentality of like, well, you just need to overcome it. And so you just start drinking and whatever.
Yeah.
So, you know, long story short, I got out of the military in 2009. And I honestly thought, like, okay, I've been through the worst. Getting out and going back home and being a civilian is going to be the easiest thing I've ever done. And it was the hardest thing I've ever done. That making that transition of like, you know, I rose through the ranks very quickly. I decorated, you know, I'll remove my hand so you can pat me on the back too. And then I became a nobody, right? Like I'm a community college student.
Yeah.
And all I want is to feel important again. And so any conversation I would have with somebody I just met, I had to tell them that I was in the military. I had to like bring it up somehow, you know, just to make sure that they knew, this is how the hierarchy works, you know. And it was just complete insecurity, depression,
masking.
Yeah, I had no idea. I wanted to be accepted, and I wanted people to think that I was.
You didn't have to worry about that when you
not a bit, not a bit. You know, I went from working with the president of the United States all the way down to 4-star generals and senators. And
so what presidents have you met?
I met George W. Bush twice. And then one time when I was working protective services, my job was to drive a golf cart for Condoleezza Rice while she played 5 balls per hole. And she was cool. Still the firmest handshake I've ever had in my life.
Really?
Yeah. And then I had a really bad interaction with Hillary Clinton one time. And I got yelled at by General Petraeus, who's now a Fox News contributor. He was the 4-star in charge of the war in Iraq, basically. But,
okay.
Yeah, he screamed at me one time.
Justifiably or no?
Well, the CIA would come in and pull guys from the compound and interrogate them. And sometimes I would just happen to be the one that would have to escort them.
Mm-hmm.
And I would like overhear the tactics they were using, and I just didn't agree with it. And so I spoke up. And my commander overheard me, you know, basically disparaging their interrogation tactics. And General Petraeus happened to be on base that day. And somehow it made it up to him. And yeah, I got screamed at. And I was like, okay, you know, whatever. But again, that was after like my mind had kind of changed. I'm like, why the fuck are we here?
Yeah.
What are we doing? And then I remember that base closed in like 2011 or 2012. And out of the, let's call it 30,000 detainees that they would have had, they only transferred like 11 of them to Guantanamo. And so you're telling me 29,989 of these people that were there shouldn't have been there. They just released them.
Yeah.
And then they closed the base. And so I remember
they just messed up their lives.
I read it in the New York Times, and I remember just being like, what a waste. What a waste of everyone's time, money, resources, their lives, their limbs. coming back with all these problems, you know, for what?
Yeah.
And I know that's a really unpopular thing to say amongst my military circles, but I don't care. That's my experience, and
You're
that's
not
how
the only person in the military.
yeah, and that's how I feel about it, you know. And so one of my biggest pet peeves is just like these entitled veterans that walk around like they found Bin Laden.
Yeah.
Like, dude, stop.
Because you did that for a little while.
I looked for him. I went like this. I couldn't find him.
Yeah. No, but because you did because you said you came out and you kind of had that entitlement. Well, you used
of course,
it.
yeah. Oh yeah.
So you see it.
Yeah, it drives me crazy.
Yeah.
You know, Veterans Day Veterans Day is like I'm proud of, you know, I did something not a lot of people do.
Yeah.
You know, you
sacrifice.
I think you can be proud of that, but I
Yeah.
think it's also like important to just be realistic about it too, you know. And if I go out on Veterans Day, which I really don't anymore, but you know, people they offer free meals and things like that.
Yeah.
And you go there and it's just a bunch of guys like wearing these tight shirts with like skulls on them, and they're just treating the staff terribly, you know. And it just drives me crazy. And
Yeah.
I remember one time I was at like, I forget what store I was at, and this guy in front of me was like, "You guys offer a military discount?" She's like, "No, I'm sorry." He's like, "Oh, okay, so you're all just terrorists, I guess." Like, nope, they're a small business. And they're not offering you because you worked in the kitchen. Like, come on,
Yeah, dude.
relax, dude.
Yeah.
So that stuff kind of drives me crazy. But I've been out so long now that it's a part of what shaped me, and it was a good way for me to like grow up.
Yeah.
And I really had to mature quickly, and it probably wasn't always in the healthiest way or anything like that. But there is something to say about living, you know, a couple thousand miles away from home for a couple of years. I mean, when I left to go to England, I didn't come home for 18 months.
Yeah.
And I think that everyone should leave their hometown. You can always come back.
Yeah.
You know, and it changed my perspective on a lot of things. So I traveled a lot when I lived in England, and I traveled a lot while I was in the military. And so then when I got out, I went to Scott Community College, and then I went to Iowa, and I got my degree in international studies in Spanish, because that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to continue traveling and working with different cultures, and all that stuff fascinates me. I mean, people fascinate me.
Yeah.
And we're never going to figure everyone out, you know, but it was sure fun to try.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my long-winded military history story.
No, I appreciate it.
And you're welcome.
Yeah, and you're welcome. Thank you for your service.
Yeah, I mean,
Sorry.
just whatever.
No big deal. So when did the comedy start? When did the comedy start first, or the music start first?
Well,
or you've always played music?
My senior year of high school, there was a talent show, and I wanted to do stand-up comedy for it.
Okay.
And so I wrote like a 5-minute set, and then I got second place. And the guy I lost to like directed a movie about this stupid teddy bear, and he called it was like a French film. He called it Les Bears, and it was all like silent. It was actually really good. And that guy, Justin Pisecki, was just named one of the top 10 screenwriters to watch in 2024. So it worked. They chose the right.
They chose
person.
the right guy.
Yeah. So, and I started playing bass my junior or senior year of high school, and then didn't really do much with it. And then my first duty station, I brought a guitar with me. I just brought like a crappy acoustic guitar, and I just kept playing. I never took lessons or anything. I just like read tablature, and then I remember I was playing, and somebody's like, "Oh, you're a good singer." I'm like, really? They go, "Yeah."
Yeah, it's hard to tell. Like,
I didn't know.
Yeah.
But just one person telling me that gave me the confidence to be like, okay, maybe I can sing. And then I learned how to sing and play, and then when I got out and moved back here, I knew how to sing and play probably like 10 songs. And my buddy Brad, he's played in a band since he was 10 years old. He goes, "Hey, I have an acoustic gig that I have to do, and I have to fill 4 hours. How many songs can you play?" I was like, 10. He goes, "Great, you're going to play all 10. And so before the gig, we got together, and he taught me like 5 or 6 of the songs he was going to play. And then we just kind of started playing like as an acoustic duo, and I learned so many songs from him, and I learned so much about the music business here locally, of just like how to get booked, how to deal with a bar owner, how to deal with a crowd, how to just basically do your job. Yeah. And And then mostly started playing solo acoustic. But the comedy started. I did an open mic in 2011 at Penguins Comedy Club when it used to be at the Freight House.
Yep.
And I did 5 minutes and went well. And then I came back the next month and I did.
It was a monthly mic?
Yeah, it was a monthly mic. And I didn't know. I just thought like the only way to do comedy is to go to a comedy club. I didn't realize that people had open mics at a bar or whatever, right? So a month later, I go back and did pretty well. And then Penguins closed. And I go, well, there goes my comedy career. Like that.
It's over.
That's the end of it. And then like a year later, there was an open mic at what used to be a strip club, and then it turned into a bar. So behind the bar was a stage.
Where was this at?
Oh God, like East Moline somewhere.
Oh, I wouldn't know. Yeah.
If you talk to James Draper, he'd remember the name.
I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and
he's brought it up before.
Yeah, and
did he host it?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
So then I did comedy there, and then just kept doing open mics, and then I got booked for a showcase, and then I got hooked up with a booking agent, and just started like featuring, and then I moved to Iowa City, and then I was doing like 2 open mics a week. Then I started running a showcase at the Mill, R.I.P. the Mill, and then I was just on the road all the time. And like I would tell my professors, like, "Yeah, I'm not gonna be in class much." And they're like, "Well, attendance is a big part of your grade." I go, "We're gonna have to figure something out because like I'm a professional comedian and I'm gonna be on the road."
Yeah.
And so that's what I did. I toured for a couple years, and then I graduated college, and I was like, "Okay, I need to get a real job."
Yeah.
And so I did, and I hated it. I hated having a real job. And then I was still doing stand-up when I could. And then, I've like gotten really back into it and then kind of pulled back. And then now I think I've kind of found my rhythm with it. Like I'm good. Like, as I told you, like I went to your open mic and I go, man, I haven't been in an open mic in a long time.
Yeah, because I've been at it for like 2.5 years. I'm like, because I've seen, like I know this guy, and I had seen you perform. I think it was at the old Raccoon Motel.
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to go to those mics before I performed, and then, I would go so much. Schlichting, I've known Schlichting because I know his brother.
Okay.
He was like, hey, when are you going to go up there? I was like, what? And he's like, I could tell you like this. Like, you're here all the time. I was like, I don't know. I don't have any material. And then I was eventually just like, all right. And then he did like a Renwick thing.
Yeah.
And where he signed up in advance. And I was like, all right, I'll do that.
Cool.
And I just like, that didn't completely bomb, but it didn't go well. But whatever.
Yeah, I mean,
I didn't care. It was so like, but that first time I was so nerve wracked because you don't know what to expect. No. You're just like, everybody's just looking at you like, make me laugh. I'm like, whoa. But yeah, it's been like, it's therapeutic for me for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, bombing obviously still sucks. But that's why I go to open mics. Is like I like almost expect to bomb at mics. I tried dumb. The more dumber shit that I try, the more shit I can work out. Like whatever, it doesn't matter. Like, and that way when I go to a show, I know what works. I mean, that's what open mics are for. Because like I don't think anyone's too good for open mics or anything like that. Like, and that's right. You probably realize like I haven't been to an open mic in a while. Like, how long had it been?
Longer than 2 years. Probably.
Yeah.
And what I liked about it was, you know, like we were talking about earlier, that was not my demographic. A bunch of 21-year-olds.
He had to.
And so it felt good to not do well, because the majority of the shows that I'm doing, I know a lot of people in the crowd.
Yeah,
you know, and
what to do.
It's like your home team.
Yeah.
You know, and so
everyone's rooting for you.
Yeah, everyone wants you to do well. They're gonna laugh harder than they probably should.
Yeah.
And so that was really good for me to go through that, and it made me want to come back and do another open mic and like maybe 2 of those jokes worked, and we can develop it and see where it goes. And so I'm down. I'm ready to do some more open mics.
Yeah, it's
I don't want the other comics to talk to me beforehand though, you know, because like I am like a professional.
Yeah, I don't want to talk to him.
If I could have my own table,
be like, Zach, don't talk to him. But you got to know Zach. Zach was one of my first comedians I had on here, actually.
Zach's a great guy. He needs to figure out how to manage his emotions before a show. So I watched it happen, and I hope he listens to this. I watched it happen.
He gets nervous.
No, what happened was he did a show at Renwick a couple weeks ago, and the night before he did a showcase and crushed. And he was like, "That's the best I've ever felt after a show." And he's like, "I had such a great night." And he's like, "And I'm just so down in the dumps today." And I go, "Yeah, but you get to go do a show." He's like, "I don't care. I'm in such a bad mood."
Ooh, yeah.
And so I was kind of talking to him before the show, and I was trying, we were kind of like joking around together, making each other laugh. And I was like, all right, maybe that kind of helped him. And he's gonna go up there. And I thought he did great at that showcase. And then he was just in a horrible mood afterwards. And I go, dude, this number one is not that serious.
Yeah.
It just really isn't. I know it is to you.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's just comedy. Do not let it ruin your day.
Yeah.
Do not let it, embrace.
He goes 100%.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's all or nothing.
Yeah, which is fine.
Yeah.
But you're only doing yourself and the crowd a disservice if you go on stage in a bad mood. And I've been there. Like, you're on the road, you just drove for 10 hours and you had a horrible day.
Yeah, it's hard to flip that switch.
But you have to.
Yeah.
You have to. It's not about you. People paid to be there.
Mm-hmm.
Put on a show. You know how many times
which it sounds like he did, and he's still.
Well, he had something happen at the end of the set where he just completely spaced.
Oh, that sucks.
And it sucked. Everybody's been there.
Yeah.
And that's not a knock on him. It's just like it happened.
Yeah.
He just goes, God, I messed that joke up. And then he tried another one. He's like, I forgot what I was going to say. Alrighty. Well, that's the end of my. So I thought he started out really strong. And then it just kind of fumbled at the end.
This is a Harrington show?
No, this was at Renwick.
Oh, this is at Renwick. Okay.
But then he was really upset with himself afterwards. There's no reason, shit happens, dude. Like,
yeah,
you're not gonna blow the crowd away every show you do, but as long as you feel like you put on the best show you possibly can, then you should be able to walk away happy. But I think a lot of comedians get so in their head. I mean, obviously, the reason why people are getting on stage is something's wrong with them. So, once, trying to wrangle a comedian's mental health and regulate their mood is next to impossible. But I think it's important to talk about it because, again, at the end of the day, you're telling jokes, you're putting on a show. We're not, when the pandemic happened, we weren't essential workers.
Yeah.
So let's take a step back and just realize this is fun. This is supposed to be fun.
Did you ever do any dumb Zoom shows?
No, hell no. I did. I did music Zoom stuff.
Yeah.
Which was fine. But I would have never done.
I would have hated that.
It's not how comedy's supposed to happen.
No.
There's no way that it works.
Yeah, I started when things started opening up. So.
Yeah, you picked the right time.
Yeah. Well, I just got in a relationship. I was lonely. My head was all over the place. Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect time.
And you're exposing yourself to be so vulnerable because when I go play live music, I can hide behind my guitar. And I'm also playing other people's songs. So if you didn't like the song that I just played, you're not getting angry and leaving the room. You're just like, I'll wait for the next song.
Yeah.
But if you go on stage and it's just you and a microphone and a mic stand, maybe a stool, right? And you tell a joke that somebody finds very offensive, they may flip out, they may yell, they may leave, they may bash you.
Yeah.
And so you're opening yourself up to a lot of that, and you're so vulnerable because you're so exposed up there.
Yeah.
And it's just you, and you're having a one-sided conversation with a crowd, and you want all of them to be on your side.
Oh yeah.
And it doesn't work that way.
No.
So if you, like we were talking about earlier, if you try and please everybody in the crowd, you're going to walk away unhappy.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. So I think I've just been doing it long enough, and I've been on stage enough times where I'm just like, hope this goes well.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't, it's okay.
Yeah.
Mike Birbiglia always said something that stuck with me, and he goes, when I was on the road for the first time, I got to my hotel room, and I was so excited. I had a hotel room.
Yeah.
And he's getting ready to leave for the show, and he's super nervous. And he just looked in the mirror, and he said, no matter what happens at that show, I get to come back to this hotel room.
Yeah.
So who cares?
That's paid for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So who cares?
Yeah.
Just do your thing.
Yeah, I'm just excited to get like $40 sometimes.
Right. Yeah.
Like
I mean,
I'm at that point. Like because I'm like really slowly easing into it. I'm trying not to bite off more than I can chew. I mean, not trying to jump into. I've only done a few feature spots. I mostly just opened and hosted, which
mhm.
is fine with me. Like
Makes you a better comic hosting.
I like hosting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've gotten way better because of hosting.
I thought you did a great job on Tuesday because it was so cold to go up to that mic. I
Oh
mean,
yeah,
you know, the bar had a bunch of people about 50 feet away,
yeah.
and you,
Were they listening? Were they not listening?
well, you
It was
did a
good.
good job of being like, hey guys, we're gonna do an open mic. If you want to try comedy tonight, come sign up. We
Yeah,
only have a couple people signed up, so we'll
yeah,
get you on. Otherwise, we're gonna start in 10 minutes. Please head over this way if you want to hear a comedy show.
yeah,
And then you went up and you said, you introduced yourself, you introduced what the show was going to be, and then you said, this is an open mic. I'm also going to be trying new material.
yeah,
And that you set the tone,
yeah, yeah.
and you set the expectation of like, yeah, Matt Rife isn't walking in here. Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
let's pump the brakes.
Yeah,
It's fine.
yeah,
You're going to watch people bomb.
yeah,
And yeah, like maybe 2 of my jokes went okay. Great.
yeah,
Now I know where I stand.
yeah.
So yeah, so you did a good job.
I appreciate that. You brought up a buzz. You brought up the buzz name, Matt Rife. Everyone's talking about that guy right now. It's so. I don't know if I want to give him the time. I don't have a problem with him. I get it. Like he blew up. Like it happens. These things happen.
Just not to us.
Yeah, just not to us. Like the way he blew up was so ridiculous too. Like it was just so quick. Like
Yeah,
but
organic.
he also
and, like,
just like it's also like he wasn't like just some like YouTuber or something. Like he's actually done mics.
for like 11 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, all right.
Yeah.
Did his time.
Yeah, I mean
Whatever.
the problem I have with everything is if you are watching his special on Netflix and he says something that offends you, then watch something else.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, outrage is not only some people's identity,
Yeah.
but it's an addiction.
Oh yeah.
And so I get like the joke was so stupid.
It was dumb.
It wasn't funny. I didn't find it funny.
Yeah.
And
But I wasn't offended.
I didn't care. But
Yeah,
also
it was
like, but also, dude, that's how you open your Netflix special. That's not good.
It's a bold move.
And on the other hand, Netflix is the one that greenlit it. So why isn't everyone yelling at them?
Yeah.
They had to review it before they put it on their platform.
Yep.
So, I mean, his response to everyone being offended was, that's
he doubled down.
which good.
Yeah.
You're not going to please everybody, dude. If you start apologizing to the crazy mob, you're never going to
You're
win.
gonna be apologizing forever.
You're never going to win. So I think people had a right to be offended.
Yeah.
But also just keep scrolling.
Yeah. There's so many comedians.
It wasn't for you.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't for me either.
Yeah.
I don't find him that funny, but
Yeah.
I respect his hustle and I respect how he got to where he's at. And,
Yeah.
And I can't imagine the stress of becoming famous overnight. I mean that's to me like I wouldn't wish that on anyone. That would be. I'd be so upset if I like went viral for something that people love, but then everyone starts digging through my Facebook and Instagram and just critiquing everything that I've said or pictures I've posted. And because when I get served with Facebook memories from 2008, I'm like, who's this douchebag?
Yeah.
Shut up.
I've deleted a lot of memories.
Every day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Every day. I mean,
Yeah.
I saw something that popped up on the other day, and it was something I wrote in like 2009. And it was like, people say you are what you eat, but I also think you are what you watch. And if you watch The Biggest Loser, what does that say about you? And I probably thought it was the funniest thing that anyone's ever said. And I cringed so hard that I came and wanted to jump off my fucking balcony at my condo, but it's against HOA rules to kill yourself there, so I'm not allowed to do that.
That's in the rules.
No, I'm joking.
Hey,
but
I don't read the fine print.
What like reading, and that's why I feel so fortunate that okay, I'm 38. When I was in high school, we didn't have Facebook. We didn't
Thank
have
God.
social media. We didn't text, and so
Yeah,
I
you were
can
right.
Yes.
You were the last.
Yes. Yeah, I'm like Little House on the Prairie now.
Yeah.
Like, so I can only imagine the things that I would have posted on Facebook in 2003 as an 18-year-old. I thought I was the funniest person in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody was funnier than me. Nobody was wittier than me. No, dude. No, you're dumb when you're 18.
Yeah.
You're just an idiot.
Very.
And
Yeah.
so if I can't stand what 24-year-old Bob said, 18-year-old Bob would have been I'd be delete, you know.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah, you got out like you guys didn't. I had I think my senior year, or my freshman year of college was when like I got a BlackBerry.
Yeah. The emails would be like sent with a BlackBerry. I'm like,
ooh,
yeah. Daddy Warbucks over there.
yeah. Oh yeah. Well, I worked at Best Buy and I worked with tech, so I would always get like the newest, latest thing usually. Oh man, yeah. If I could, I had Facebook until I think like 2007. So I was a junior.
Yeah,
because
you had to have. Oh, that's when they opened it up.
That's when they opened it up to everybody.
Yeah, that's right. Because I had Facebook my second deployment in Iraq.
Yeah,
and I've deleted so many of those posts.
I go back and delete stuff because I was like, thought I was cool posting me drinking and stuff because I'm
flipping the camera.
Whatever. Yeah, you're just like, oh man.
Yeah,
just stupid stuff. But oh man.
But there's also like I'll listen to like comedy sets I did when I was like 5 years ago, and I'm just like, really, dude, that's not funny.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I wrote a gem here.
Yeah.
It's like, no. But I think that's part of growth, right? Like,
or you find an old joke that works.
True. I actually just remembered one.
Yeah.
I was having trouble falling asleep last night. I remembered like a really quick joke I was like, that I used to tell. And I would go, yeah, I was holding the door open for a lady. And I was like, how you doing today? And she goes, I'm blessed. And I thought that was so nice. And then she sneezed and I had no idea what to say.
That's good. Oh, bless you joke.
Cute joke.
Yeah,
know? Just
it's a fun joke. Yeah.
I was out with somebody the other night, and we were sitting at the end of the bar having a drink, and this lady, like across the bar, sneezed, and it was one of the loudest sneezes I'd ever heard. And I go,
it's a powerful one.
Oh, dude.
Yeah.
I go, bless you, jeez. and the girl I was with, she goes, yeah, you didn't need to say "geez" after that.
Yeah,
she goes, it kind of negates the blessing part of it.
You kind of cancel out the bless you, and you're like,
I was like, you're right.
Disgusted by her sneeze.
When I was in class, my favorite bit that I would always do is if somebody sneezed, I'd just like shush them really loud.
No sneezing.
Yeah, we don't do that here.
So you talked about it actually a little bit the other day when I ran into you. You were talking about therapy. So, and you said when you grew up, therapy wasn't really an option. And obviously when you're in the military, so when did that come up where you're like, okay, I need to start? Like,
yeah. So probably like 2000. I think I was out of the military for like 2 years, and so I went to the VA, and I was like, I need to talk to somebody.
Yeah.
So they set me up with a therapist, and so I was doing that while I was going to the University of Iowa, and then I did like a series of their cognitive behavioral therapy sessions. It was like a 16-week thing that I did, and learned a lot of tools from that.
Was that mainly to focus on?
Yeah, it was just to like learn. It was to like hopefully learn tools on how to manage depression and whatever else I was going through, PTSD.
I was gonna say there's got to be some PTSD.
Oh,
there.
for sure.
Yeah.
So the problem with getting your therapy through the VA, and this is at least how it works for me, is they'll like give you 12 to 16 session blocks, and then once you make it through that, then you gotta like take a break, and then like you can restart it again. But you always have to get like referred. So it's I'm not going to sit here and bash the VA healthcare because I've always had a great experience with them. I know not every veteran can say that, but I felt had really good care, and they listen and, put me in touch with who I need to be put in touch with. It's just the way they do their therapy. And also like, we're comparing my PTSD versus guys that like lost limbs and tons of friends and,
like witnessed that,
kicking doors in and things like that, So I am realistic about where I stand in the waiting line, you know. But they've never turned me down. But I just always thought I'd benefit from like continuous therapy. But what I found was the therapy would only do so much for me. It gave me the tools, and then it's up to you to use them.
Yeah.
Excuse me. But it didn't. I never felt like, man, I'm a lot better. I never felt
not cured.
No, right. But I never felt like consistently better. I always still felt like that dark passenger was there, you know, telling me like, oh, let's just get day drunk and, you know, just be destructive and, you know, you don't deserve to be successful and like just, you know, that type of stuff.
Self-sabotage stuff.
Yeah, let's fucking self-sabotage.
Yeah, let's destroy some stuff.
Oh, you're enjoying yourself? We'll
Yeah.
be the judge of that.
Yeah.
And so I was just going through these high highs and low lows, you know, and just a vicious cycle. And then I started dating my ex-wife, and she is so emotionally mature, and she doesn't really, I'm not going to say she doesn't understand depression, but she just has never really experienced it. You know? But she like
can't relate.
Not really, but she also like learned very early on the tools to manage all that stuff, and she's really good at it. And so I was just a fucking train wreck, you know, and she finally was just like, something's got to happen. Like, I can't put up with this. And so then I got serious about therapy again, and then it just wasn't continuous enough, you know, like I never felt like it was, I felt like it was a part of what I needed, but and I just didn't know what to do.
It didn't fill the cup up all the way. Yeah.
No. So then I was sharing an office with this guy, and he asked me, he's like, "What are you doing tomorrow?" And I said, "Oh, I don't really have." He's like, "Will you drive me to Chicago? I'm gonna do ketamine treatment, and I need you to drive me there and drive me back." I said, "Yeah, no problem."
Were you like, what the hell is that?
Yeah, I was like,
yeah.
I was like, that's a party drug.
I was like, you going to K-hole or?
Yeah, I didn't know, and I didn't really know
going
anything.
To a rave?
I mean, I didn't really know anything about ketamine. Like, I'm not a big drug guy or anything like that.
But that's when you hear about it.
Exactly. Yeah. You know.
Yeah.
So I took him, and so you know, the 2.5 hour drive back.
This was roughly around what time?
This was probably 2018 ish.
Okay. So I was gonna say ketamine therapy hasn't been a thing for that long. So
yep. And so he's kind of explaining it to me. I go, man, I feel like I could benefit from that. So I started doing a little research, and it was like PTSD, depression, anxiety, pain, all that stuff.
All that. Yeah.
I go, yeah, check.
Yeah.
So then the Quad Cities Ketamine Clinic opened.
Yep.
And so I did my consult. They, you know, you have to get referred by a psychologist, and I remember doing my evaluation, and the psychologist was asking me a bunch of questions, and some stuff about like my childhood came up, and I remember I gave him an answer to one of his questions. And you remember the movie Office Space when Peter goes to hypnotherapy, and the therapist is like, it's because Peter goes, every day when I wake up is the worst day of my life. And he goes, is today the worst day of your life? And Peter goes, yeah. He goes, wow, that's messed up. Like, that's what this guy did to me. Like, I said something, he goes, wow, that's messed up. And he's like, you're a candidate for this.
You qualify.
You know? Yeah, you're good.
Yeah.
So then I did, so the way it worked was you have to do 6 sessions within the first 3 weeks or something like that. And it's expensive.
Yeah.
But because I'm a veteran, I got a discount.
Okay, that's cool.
Which is great.
Because insurance is like, we're not touching that yet.
Not yet, no.
Yeah, I knew that.
So at that point in time, it was $3,000 for the 6 sessions, but it was $2,500 if you paid for them all up front.
Oh, okay.
And then I got 15% off of that, so it was like $2,100 something is what I ended up paying for those. And I was like, okay, this is going to be worth it, because I don't want to offend anyone, but like, I'm so against prescription medication and antidepressants and things like that. Like, it just would never be something that I would use as a tool to help my depression because of all the side effects. And I tried one time.
I was gonna say, have you tried one?
Yeah, I tried one time, and I just didn't like it. Completely ruined my personality. Like, I was just so
zombied.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
And
I get what you're saying. I'm trying to slowly get myself off of them. But I've been on them so long.
Yeah.
It's like one of those things. It's such a
And I just was, I know, like, I'm not a specialist, I'm not an
yeah
expert, and I don't, again, if it works for you, great.
yeah.
But
There's
that's
some
not,
people I know. Yeah, I'm like keep taking
dude. I
them.
was like, I woke up in my kitchen, and like it just like
Oh,
things
okay.
weren't working the way they're supposed to, and I'm like, I don't even take Tylenol and stuff like that very often, a couple times a year maybe. I'm just not a big medication guy, and
Yeah
I'm not sitting here like I'm some Christian Scientist where like if my kid had needed a lung transplant, I'm like, we'll pray on it.
yeah
I'm not like that, but
no
I needed something, and so I was doing all this research, and then I went to my first session, and immediately after the first session, I felt a difference.
So describe how the session goes, because I've heard about it and Dan talked about it a little bit, but
Mm-hmm.
that was like I think it was almost a year ago that I had Dan on.
Okay.
So yeah, I would like to learn more about it. I know my listeners were like, so how? Yeah, describe that first session and kind of how it works, because a lot of people don't really know how it works.
So I show up, and then you fill out a questionnaire, and
Okay.
it's basically like a PHQ of like where you at on the depression scale.
Like the smiley faces.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
like, show us on this chart.
Yeah.
And so you score your questionnaire, and then they kind of use it as a benchmark of like, all right, we're gonna use this to like see what kind of progress you're gonna make.
Yeah.
And then you go in the room and you sit in a recliner, and they give you some anti-nausea medication,
Mm-hmm.
and then they inject you with B12.
Okay.
And then that first session is they want to figure out what your dosage is going to be, and a lot of it's based off of your body weight and things along those lines. So
Kind of like anesthesia.
I think, yeah, because a lot of there are people that work in this clinic that are anesthesiologists and
Makes sense.
nurse practitioners, and so it's a very professional environment. But they were brand new, and so like I think they were still kind of working on a lot of the kinks of being a new business.
Yeah.
And so then I brought an eye mask, and I brought noise canceling headphones, and I went on Spotify and I found like a ketamine playlist,
Okay.
and it's all instrumental.
Yeah.
And I remember leaving that first session, and you're very out of it. Like I'm very wobbly, and it's hard to walk, and your brain is not firing on all cylinders, right? Because you just tripped your balls off for 45 minutes. And so the first session, like I had done mushrooms before, and so I kind of knew what to expect as far as like a hallucinogen goes, but I've never had an IV of ketamine before. And at first I started tasting it in the back of my throat, and then your body gets really relaxed. And I always lay with like my hands on the armrest, and I have my legs propped up so that if I ever don't feel like I'm in reality, I can wiggle my toes and touch something.
Mm-hmm.
And because I'm in complete darkness how I want it. And the visual, I could picture people and interactions, and what it did was during that first session is it made me appreciate every person in my life who's contributed in a positive way. And what ketamine did for me was it said, this is what you think is stressing you out. This isn't stressing you out. This is actually what's stressing you out. And then it just like
deeper.
Yeah, and it laid out like 2 options, and it was like, do you want to handle this, or do you not care that much? Just let it go, right? And a lot of it's like personal relationships and things like that. And then I did my 6 sessions, and I was like, I am changed. Like, it's not a cure, but wow. For those you listening that have anxiety, where something happens and your whole body starts buzzing and your heart starts racing and you feel the walls closing in, ketamine eliminates 100% of that. So my brain would have a thought that would then cause my body to react with that anxiety, and it's gone. And then it allowed me to process it and get over it. So when you've gone through trauma and PTSD and whatever you've gone through, your brain, the neurons stop firing. They just die, right? They're done. And so what would happen to me is I would just react so quickly. so quickly to something. It's usually in anger or
Yeah.
it has to be done my way. And after I started doing ketamine, it was like those neurons start firing again, and it creates brain plasticity, and it's very healthy. And it's like that kind of is what happens when you get good night's sleep, right? Your brain is able to,
Recharge.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so now when something happens, it's almost like time slows down, and I'm able to see the problem.
Yeah.
And now I have 20 new pathways that are allowing me to think very quickly of how am I going to handle this. And so I'm a lot more chill,
Alert,
humble, not totally humble yet, but we're working on that.
Working on that.
Yeah, I do love me some BRB. And I'm easier to be around. I'm happier. I love life more. I'm more motivated to do better with my career, help others, leave the house, And so then ketamine, the mistake I made with it was I started going through my divorce, and I didn't want to do ketamine while I was going through that because I knew we weren't meant to be married. I'll always love her. We are still very good friends, and I think it'll remain that way.
Yeah, when you were talking the other day, I was like, this is the most casual divorce talk I've ever heard in my life.
I mean, don't get me wrong, there were some very dark parts of it, but
yeah.
I wanted to raw dog my divorce, basically. I wanted to go
wanted to feel all
yes.
Yeah.
And because ketamine would be like, all right, it's not that big of, but I knew deep down, like, this wasn't meant to be. But I went like 9 months without it.
And how long were you married?
4 years, almost 5 years. And so I went too long without it. And I was like really, really depressed. And now I live alone, and I don't have anyone to be responsible to, so I'm going out every night and just getting hammered, and now I'm sleeping in, and now I feel like shit, and
yeah,
the vicious cycle started again. The self-sabotage, the downward spiral, and I was like, okay, I gotta go do ketamine again, But the problem was I didn't have a plan. I was like, this is just gonna fix me again.
Oh.
And that's not how it works. Like, you have to go in with intention.
Yeah, Dan said the same thing. You have to go in with like something you're gonna work on,
exactly.
Or a game plan.
Yeah, exactly. Focus on something. Now the journey may take you elsewhere, and it may take you to things, like I said earlier, like that you didn't realize were a problem. So the first session I did, I felt worse. Well, I hadn't been taking care of my body. I wasn't hydrated. I wasn't sleeping.
Ooh.
So
what are some of the qualifications as far as like, do you not say I was on medication and wanted to go there, would you have to be completely off of your medication?
I don't know about that.
You don't know about that? Yeah.
They ask you what medication you're on. So, and that would be something you talk to your psychologist about when they give you the consult.
Yeah. Because I had talked to her about it a little bit, but she talked about it a different way. Like, it's called Mind Bloom. Have you heard of that one?
I have, yeah.
Where you take it at home. Or there's other ways where I could take it with her in the room, right, and we like do a session.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's wild.
Yeah, I don't want anyone in the room with me.
Yeah.
So then I went back, and when I went back the second time, I remember I got home, and usually like I just need to like lay down for a little bit.
Because you're a little out of it.
Yeah, and they say like don't make any big decisions. Like I don't work. Like I let my clients know like, hey, I have a doctor's appointment today, and I'm going to be out of commission afterwards. So if you need anything, and I always do the last appointment of the day, so I get all my stuff done, and then guilt free have that night,
Yeah.
And I remember I got home and I turned on the TV, and the movie Arrival is on Netflix.
I've not seen it, so.
I had seen it before, but watching it a second time is a completely different experience. And I started bawling my eyes out.
Is that a military movie?
Not really. Like, it's a linguist. 7 alien pods touch down across the earth, and this linguist is then in charge of like trying to communicate with them.
So it's like it's a sci-fi thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that is like just the subplot. I mean, there's so much.
There's layers.
And when you watch the movie, everything clicks at the end, But then if you go in watching it the second time, you know what happens at the end, and you start seeing everything that's leading up to it, and it's very emotional. And I start bawling my eyes out. I'm like watching this movie starring Amy Adams, bawling my eyes out, and I mean, uncontrollably crying.
You had it built up,
dude. Like couldn't breathe, just sobbing. My cat's like, bro. What is happening here? Like maybe your dad was right. Therapy is gay.
Yeah.
And
is this my house now?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like so I just remember being like, I can't live like this anymore. Like I let myself slip back and the ketamine's not working. So something else has to give. And I was like, okay, what am I not doing in my life? I wasn't working out.
It's a big one.
I wasn't eating right. I wasn't sleeping right.
Drinking too much.
Drinking way too much.
Yeah.
Way too much. And I wasn't happy with the way I looked. So I wasn't happy with anything.
Yeah.
I was just miserable.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it was almost like a delayed reaction to the divorce where like it all just kind of like hit me at once. You know, it's like, dude, you just fucked up your whole life. You had so many good things going. Like you're such an idiot and, you know, blah, blah, blah. But that wasn't reality. You know, I was just the depressed guy in me, like making excuses.
Catastrophizing it.
So then I said to myself, okay, even if I don't have somewhere to be, I'm going to get up early. So I set an alarm every morning. And then I started, whether I was able to or like whether I wanted to or not, I woke up at the same time. And I've been waking up at the same time every morning. And I would say 5 out of the 7 days of the week, I go for a 3-mile walk, like right when I wake up. And I come back feeling amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Then I have some coffee, take a shower, stretch. Then I go to the office. And now I'm like at the office with a purpose and intent and connecting with clients. And now the business starts picking back up. And now I'm better to be around. Now things like that. And so then I start going to the gym 3-4 days a week. And I love lifting weights. And so I start doing that again. I'm eating better now because I'm working out more. I don't want to feel like shit all the time. So I start eating better, sleeping better. Well, weird how all of that comes together and you feel night and day, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then my last ketamine session that I had was hands down the best one I've ever had in the last, 5 years that I've been doing this.
And when was this?
A couple weeks, like 2 weeks ago, a week ago.
Mm-hmm.
Everything clicked. Everything clicked, man. Like the work that I had been putting in leading up to that, the fact that I scheduled it before I would have needed it, right? Because I'm going every 4 to 6 weeks, and I went like 3.5 weeks, and I was in a great mood when I got there. I felt good. I'm hydrated. I slept great the night before. I hadn't drank in a couple days, like 4 or 5 days. And it was so good, dude. Like it shot me into the stratosphere of like positivity, healthy living.
Mm-hmm.
And I refuse to ever go back and feel any other way than the way I feel right now. That is not going to happen.
Yeah. You're just like,
this is how I want to feel.
Yeah.
And this isn't fake. This isn't manufactured, but this was with intent and purpose of like, it is not my fault, but it's my responsibility.
Yeah.
Just because someone cut me doesn't mean I get to fucking bleed all over everybody.
Yeah.
So what are you going to do about it? And I don't think that happiness is always a choice. I hate when people say that. Like, happiness is a choice.
Yeah, I don't like that either.
But I do think that you have a say in it.
Yeah, yeah.
And I do think that a lot of people that suffer from severe depression and everything else that we've been talking about, it's so hard to take that first step. And it's so hard to admit to yourself that you carry a lot of the responsibility of how you're going to fix this.
Oh, yeah.
And it's easy to blame others. And yes,
way easier.
Something happened to you. I understand. And it wasn't your fault.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry. But you can't live like this. Like
yeah.
you have to be a productive member of society. You for yourself and for your family and for whatever else. Whatever your why is. And my why is I like the way that I feel right now and that I have felt for the last month or whatever. And I'm not going to stop doing what I'm doing. I won't allow it because any other way to live is just complete self-destruction and spiraling. And so that's what it's done for me, you know. I don't think it's for everybody. I've had some really bad trips, but they were one of them was not my fault. One, they gave me too much.
Oh, really?
Dude, like,
Yeah.
dude, they gave me too much, and I hadn't been for a long time. This is like after my 9-month break, so my tolerance wasn't there, and my body was vibrating so hard that it was loud, and I go, can you guys turn the massage thing off in the chair? They're like, yeah, it's not on, and I was like, I'm okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
that's just my body.
I just think if it's something that you're interested in, do your research.
Yeah. Talk to somebody.
Talk to an expert.
Yeah.
I am not a doctor. I'm not an expert. I am not a psychiatrist, psychologist, anything like that. But I have my experience. And,
yeah.
And this is what's worked for me. But I just really think it comes down, you got to move, man. Like, even just going for a 15-minute walk will change your entire mood.
Oh, yeah.
Change your entire mood. Break a sweat.
Yeah.
Do something you enjoy. If you like cooking, go buy ingredients for something you haven't made in a year. Make it a project. Have a purpose. And one thing I told myself when I bought my condo, and like, I'm like, nobody wants to fucking live in a condo, dude. This is terrible. I made a deal with myself that I would leave every day. Whether it's to go walk around the block, go to the gas station, so leave every day. Don't sit there.
I have to do that working from home.
Yeah. And that's what works for me, man. So, I don't know.
Well, I appreciate it, man. We're did a good amount of time, so
Are you asking me to leave?
I'm not asking you to leave. I'm saying we got to wrap it up, just because I try to keep it between an hour and a half, just because I'm not Rogan.
No, I know, and I could talk all day.
Well, that's the thing
about myself.
Well, that's the thing is like it's tough to be like, yeah, it's tough to really draw the line with some of these episodes. It's like we could talk about so many different things, but I appreciate you describing that, because I was like, how does it really work? Like, so basically, what I've gathered is you basically, like, to sum it up in one sentence, ketamine therapy is basically having a therapy session with yourself.
That's a very good way to put it.
Yeah.
And I don't know if everyone has that experience, but that's what happens to me. And
you're kind of like,
I would just say, like, the music you choose is very important, because it your body's going to start like feeling like it's floating and moving. And like, you ever see like how they make like taffy? Like, sometimes I feel like my body's like folding into itself.
Oh, okay.
It's very like, and the song will change that, right? It'll like, I'll either see like brightness and stuff like that, or like it'll get dark. And so I've really kind of curated a playlist that works, where it's good instrumental stuff, but it's not like dark, depressing, things like that. Like, I was listening to a lot of like Max Richter, who's one of my favorite composers, but his stuff is very dark, On the Nature of Daylight is one of my favorite songs by him, and it's used in movies and things like that, but it's like such an emotional song. Like, I can't listen to it while I'm in my session.
Yeah.
So I would just recommend that. People, and Spotify has a lot of different lists. Ketamine Piano Playlist is a great one.
Do some people do no music?
Yeah. Dan actually told me he did one with no music one time. Yeah. But the reason why I wouldn't do that is because I can hear everything out in like the lobby, and I can hear the staff like chatting, while they're waiting for us to stop tripping our balls off. Yeah. And so I wouldn't do it. I thought about doing like brown noise or green noise or something like that. I think I just like my playlist, Yeah. But do your research, go in with intent. Don't drink at least a couple days before it, and if you like smoking pot like I do, like I don't smoke a lot anymore, like before I go to bed or something, but I make sure like at least the day before my session I'm not smoking, because it's the alcohol and the marijuana is going to utilize the same parts of your brain that is trying to be repaired by the ketamine, and you don't want to extend them or whatever the word I'm looking for there is. So just going clean, go in with intent, find some good music, and like journaling about it's helped a lot too, because sometimes you forget. Like, you can.
Do you like immediately go home and journal, or like okay?
Yep.
So you don't forget.
Yeah, and I will admit, like, I have yet to go back and like read through a lot of that stuff, because I'm kind of
just to get it out.
It's kind of like watching old stand-up videos of myself. Like,
I don't know if I want to read that.
Yeah, exactly. because a lot of it's probably nonsense. But
especially if you're still kind of out of it.
oh, and you are,
Yeah.
I mean, I've had, you get home. And I'm sorry, I do need to say, put your phone on airplane mode while you're in your
Oh yeah, don't
session.
Yeah.
Because of course my phone's on do not disturb right now, and
Yeah.
it's ringing. So, like that happened to me in a session
Oh, that
where I
totally
just put
threw
it
you
on do
off.
not disturb, and then my phone rang through my headphones, and then it like auto answered, and I was like, it was so deep into I was so deep into it, I didn't know how to like turn it off, and it ruined the whole. And then I was like mad at the person for calling me, like they knew.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but put your phone on airplane mode, bring an eye mask, bring good headphones, and download the playlist to your phone, and just it's fun, man. I really enjoy it too because like I love tripping. It's great. So,
Yeah.
and then also they say even if you didn't feel like you had a good trip, it did its job. Like it still is going to develop that brain plasticity, and it's still going to do what it's supposed to do. It's just not every trip's going to be great, probably.
Yeah.
So
not gonna be life changing every time.
No.
Well, I appreciate it, man.
Thanks for having me, dude.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
It's fun.
Yeah. And you guys can follow me on Instagram. I post like once a week.
Post like once a week.
Bobby Ray Bunch.
Yeah, yeah. I'll put the links in the description for you.